Well, here we are again with another conversation on self care for women of color with your host, Dr. Tony G. Alvarado. We are still in the month of June, and I'm so excited about our guest on this week, our podcast guest, who's going to be enlightening us concerning helping us to continue the conversation concerning men, self care, health, and wellness. And this week, we're going to specifically focus on Black men's and mental health. All right. And so I'll be right back in just a minute with my guest and my co host, Dr. Johnathan Alvarado, my husband of 29 years, who has been by my side, and he thought it not robbery to be my co host on this week, on this month. So I'm going to bring him in the studio. Uh, Dr. Alvarado.
Hey, come on, eat the
I'm
sandwich.
sorry, I caught you off
No
guard.
worries.
It's okay. I caught you off guard. Thank you for being my host this month.
I'd do anything for you. Thank you for letting me come on your platform. Harmonize Your Life. Self-care for women is a great platform. It's revolutionary. It's changing people's lives for the better. And I'm glad that you thought about the brothers in the month of June and allowed me to be a part of the conversation.
Well, thank you for being here with me. We have a wonderful guest who's going to be in the studio with us today. In
Outstanding.
the person of Dr. Alduan Tartt. He is a
Amen.
psychologist, a minister, a speaker, media host, author. Just got such an extensive bio. I was just like, oh my God, I just feel so honored to have such a wonderful guest
Amen.
coming in our podcast
So
studio.
where did he do his undergraduate work?
Some little school down in Southwest Atlanta.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Some school that be training all these Black men. Morehouse College.
Morehouse College, bless her name. And a part of the wonderful class of 1996, he and two of your favorite CNN, one former CNN commentator and one current, Mark Lamont Hill, graduated in 96, one of his classmates, and Bakari Sellers graduated in 96, one of his classmates. And
Yeah,
so that class seemed to have the secret sauce
they
on it.
got some,
Because
yeah,
you
it
got
does.
Hart,
It
you
does.
got Hill, you got Sellers. It's a great class coming out of there. Of course, they can't boast the Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock, who's a member of my class. Thank you so
All
very
right,
much.
all right.
But
Representative Warnock. Yes, and Dr. Johnathan Alvarado. Thank you. All right. So listen, we'll be right back with our guest, Dr. Tartt, who's coming into the studio with us, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation. We'll be right back after this. Well, here we go. We are ready for another dynamic podcast conversation. This whole month is dedicated to our men. We're talking about and to the men in our lives. We're talking to them, and we're talking, giving strategies concerning self care, health, and wellness for our men, our husbands, our sons, our brothers, our nephews, our spiritual sons, our co workers, any man, teachers, any man in our community. Listen, ladies. Y'all know I want y'all to spread this like y'all spread gossip. Tell them that Dr. Tony has some of the most dynamic men in the podcast studio in the month of June. You don't want to miss it. And you want to encourage your brothers, encourage your husbands, encourage your sons, encourage your nephews, encourage your co-workers that are men to listen to these
sure.
conversations, share these conversations in our community so that we can all be healthy. So our men can be healthy, our women can be healthy, our children can be healthy as we pass on healthy living to another generation. Dr. Alduan Tartt is our guest today. He is a psychologist, a minister, speaker, media host, author,
Mm.
serves as a frequent psychology expert on CNN and HLN. His YouTube channel has garnered more than 1.5 million total views, and he currently partners with the OWN network, uh, XO Nicole, for social media content. Dr. Tartt is a graduate, as you already heard, of Morehouse College, and he is the youngest African American to receive his PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Michigan. Dr.
Wow.
Tartt is a recipient of the NAACP Award for a lifetime of work in counseling youth, couples, and families. Dr. Tartt is the resident psychology expert for Radio One and appears regularly on the Ricky Smiley show, Willie Moore Jr., and Darlene McCoy syndicated radio shows. Dr. Tartt currently appears on Life Therapy, and precautiously was co-host of Love, Addiction, and TV One, and has appeared as a psychology expert on multiple national television stations: ABC Nightline, John Tesh's Intelligence for Your Life, MTV's Made, VH1 Fantasia for Real, TV One's Black Men Reveal, BET 106, and Part Preachers of Atlanta. Dr. Tartt consults with the National Basketball Association and created for the first full-time psychology position with the Oklahoma City Thunder basketball team. He is the author of The Ring Formula, How to Be the Only One he ever needs, the online coaching program, theringformula.com, and has impacted over 10,000 marriages with his enrichment, his conferences, which you'll hear about later. He and his lovely wife, are members of the Word of Faith Family Cathedral here in Atlanta. He is married to Mecca Tartt. They have 2 daughters and they have a COVID son. A son that was born in the pandemic. All right.
Great
All
day
right.
in the morning.
So that's Dr. Tartt. Dr. Tartt, I want to tell you, when I was looking for a Black male therapist to come into the podcast with us, I reached out to my sister in love, Dr. Anastasia Alvarado, who is a psychologist. She did her work at Morehouse School of Medicine,
Okay.
her residency work and all of that.
She's a psychiatrist.
She's a psychiatrist. And so I reached out to her because she is a part of my self-care network. And she's been a frequent guest on this podcast. And I said to her, I said, I want to talk to a Black male therapist. And her first response was, Black male therapists are unicorns. There's not that many of them out there. And then she, about a day or so later, she sent me your information. She said, check out Dr. Tartt. He's well known. He will do you good. And so when I went on your website and read all the things you were doing, I was like, oh my God, I hope he is not too busy to come into my little podcast.
Hey, listen, we're family. Y'all don't know. I've seen y'all preach before. Y'all been in Atlanta for a long time. I'm a native of Atlanta, so I'm already familiar with the Alvarados. And I wouldn't be anywhere else. Glory be to God for what He's provided me to do. And while we are unicorns, there are more and more African American therapists who are entering the space, right? And if we're gonna call it like it is, pastors have been therapists for years, whether they wanted to or not, because that's the people, that's who congregations trusted. So I know it's Men's Mental Health Month, so I wouldn't be anywhere else because this allows me to have a platform to be able to heal men. And we know men are healed a lot of times via the personal advice of their wives, mothers, and sisters, and cousins. So I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here with us. So share with us some of your story and why you, Dr. Tartt, are very much interested in mental health, and particularly the mental health of Black men. Talk to us about why that's important to you as a Black man, but also in your field of study and work.
When we had career day, I went to Lithonia High School. We had career day, and a psychologist, Dr. Alan Carter out of Morehouse,
Mm.
came and spoke to our class. And he said he was a psychologist. He got paid to help people with their problems. I had never heard of psychology. I had heard, but I had never seen a black man. I thought it was, I'll be honest, I thought it was straight psychiatric, straight jacket, jail stuff.
Gotcha.
I did. And looking at how smooth Dr. Carter was, right? And I was like, you get paid to do what I think I'm doing in high school. And everybody's like, oh yeah, Alduan's always in people's business. And I just raised my hand so many times and I was like, man, this is a real career, right? Like that I can actually help people. And so as I picked up more skills at Morehouse University in Michigan, and I saw that I could actually be responsible for counseling and helping people, I've been addicted to it ever since. So when I go home, I can say I could be part of change. And why I'm interested in men, because we're the weakest link when it comes to mental health. I'm just gonna call it like I
Wow.
see it. We
Wow.
struggle the most. We struggle the most, and in the past, we've been the most resistant. And I say in the past because if you talk to your sister, Dr. Alvarado, you talk to pastors, you talk to helpers. Men are now coming front and center. They're asking for help. Like the
Yeah.
pandemic
Sure.
stretched them so far,
Sure.
and the marketing and the permission to be strong by saying how you feel is working. And so we see so many men who are coming into therapy. And so I'm just excited to be able to work with them. Like it's hard to say no to, I'll say I'm full. And it's a black man. Like, can you come in at 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday? Yeah, hey man, you can make it work. We will make it work. So I'm just excited about because when you talk about men, you're talking about healing husbands, which means
Right.
you're talking about healing fathers, right?
Right.
It's a lot of collateral damage when we don't treat men, but there's also a lot of blessings and a lot of things that can be repaired when we heal men. And so I'm just honored that they trust me enough to come in for marital counseling, personal counseling, and even executive coaching.
Yeah.
From a life standpoint. So I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. You said something that I want you to unpack just a little bit further. You just said something about a lot of things are impacted when men are healed.
Yeah.
There
Um,
was
can
Go
you
ahead.
talk a little bit about what some of those things might be?
Because
Um,
oftentimes we hear of how the community is impacted by the women around us, and that is so true. Black
yeah,
women, backbone of society. When you touch a woman, you touch a community. All those things. But
yeah,
I'm interested in hearing, as Dr. Tonia said. I mean, this idea of all the repair work that takes place in the reconstitution of a male psyche of a man.
yeah.
So if I
So
could
what
just
kind
be
of things are repaired when men are healed?
marriage, I'm just gonna keep it real, right? Marriage, we have to pull men into marital counseling, right? So you start talking about marriages, the science shows that women actually have the more accurate view of where the marriage are. Where the marriage is, right? So usually the man is right below. Like, so if you ask a couple how they're doing, a woman will say, we're at about a 6, and the man will say, I thought we were at a 7. Like, I knew we weren't perfect. I didn't know that it was getting worse since 2020. I didn't know that it had gotten worse. All right. Because a lot of times women keep going on in the marriage. Like the Bible talks about not nagging. And I think there's some wives that misinterpret that and they're silent, which sends the message that the marriage is okay, which men
Oh,
think, well, if you're not complaining, you're still making love, you want me to be blunt, still cooking, still hosting
Sure.
Easter, and how
Sure.
bad can it be? Right?
yeah,
Right? And
yeah.
so marriages, families, when men's source of income is affected for 3 to 6 months, studies show that they are clinically depressed. Like not being able to provide for the family at the level that the man wants to,
Oh,
there's a significant correlation with men having mental health assessments similar to depression, right? And so we look at it right now. We're in a recession, or headed toward a full scale recession, right? A lot of if you didn't have a strong marriage, it's definitely not stronger because of the
Right.
pandemic.
A lot of
If you
tension.
by yourself or lonely and you want to be in a position for
yeah,
marriage, but you can't find the right one, or you haven't had good relationships, so you don't feel financially able to provide for a wife and kids, it's a lot. it's a lot on men. So when we repair men, we're repairing marriages and families, and on a macro level, we're repairing communities. Right?
Yeah.
You repair men, church is going to be stronger. You repair. I think I read a study. It was in a book, Tipping Point, by Dr. Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
said when the number of men is 11% or more in the neighborhood, crime goes down.
Wow.
11.
Incredible.
Because men pull up and they see something going on, they jump out the car, they mentor kids. Just the presence of men outside barbecuing makes everyone feel safer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when we know the magic number is at 11%. So as we begin to heal men, we begin to heal communities.
Wow.
Incredible.
Can you
And
talk to some of our single men that are not married, maybe divorced or never married, and how does this show up?
The research is clear. Married men are happier, healthier, and wealthier. All right. So married men are happier, Dr. Tony, because he has because Dr. Alvarado, Jonathan has a Tony to come home to every day, right?
right,
Instead of reading all those
absolutely
books by
right.
himself, he can talk to you about the books, have an intelligent conversation, right? So you have a friend to do life with. That's a big deal, especially as you get older. There are a lot of single men I talk to who got serious about relationships after catching COVID and having no one to care for them. Because the woman you were
Wow.
dating with no label, she's not coming over there to catch COVID. And no, so they were suffering in
Did
silence,
you
right?
say the woman that you was with no label?
No, no, like no title. No, I'm not coming over there to die.
If you
No,
like it,
brother.
then you should have put a ring on it. If you like it, okay, all right, go
I'm
ahead.
not coming over
No,
there to
sir.
get COVID. That's
No,
right.
no,
That's
sir.
right.
We have no title.
You
No.
said,
If you had a flu, maybe, but COVID, absolutely not. So there are a lot of men that struggled, not only struggled with catching COVID, but the loneliness that came
mm,
because you weren't inviting people over, right? So that's the happiness piece. We are healthier, you know this, because wives literally nag us to go to the doctor. Right, wives. Every married man knows. Typically, wives are the ones that set up the appointments. Did you follow up with this? You've
for
been
Yep.
sure.
talking too much. Did
Yep.
you get your physical?
Yep.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So and then we're wealthier. Part of that's practical, two incomes coming in, but also men make wiser decisions when they have to provide for a family.
For sure.
Single men tend to be riskier. So that's a lot to give up as a single man, right? And as you get older, we may not admit it, but men start to measure other men based on how they take care of family. Like
Oh,
married men look at single men as an easier job. Like you just have to take care of yourself,
yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
not providing for anyone. You're not taking care of anyone. So men as they get older and want legacy and that comparison kicks in, start looking at other men and they want family life, right?
Oh,
They want connection. And then last thing,
Hold
primary care.
on, don't go to the last thing yet, because that's so affirming. Because one of the things that I tell some of the younger cats that are around me, look, dude, when you eat, your whole family eats. And I have gone as far as saying it, and I've gotten a little pushback on that. I tell them, listen, the mark of manhood to me is not taking care of you; it's being able to take care of others. That's when you become a man, when you are literally in a position to take care of other people, i.e., your family, your nuclear family, or even if you're turning around caring for an aging parent, as long when you are expending all of your resources, time, energies, and passions on your own pursuits, that to me is sub manhood. Manhood can be, in my estimation, and of course I'm skewed, but it's typified in I'm Danny Alvarado's son. There are people that need my care and need me to take care of them, and it does something for me to be able to do that. And so that's very, very interesting that as they get older, the standard of measurement for the single guy becomes more aligned with that kind of thinking.
Companies look at it. When
Mm,
when I worked for the Thunder, part of my job was to come up with initiatives to get the men to date good women. Part of it is altruistic because Sam Presti is a devout Christian of Oklahoma City Thunder, right? But the other piece was practical. We want to build our club, and we don't want our players out in the streets. We want them settled. We want a wife settling him. right? We want him to be settled. We don't want him catching HIV. We don't want him getting caught up in these paternity suits. We don't want him stressed out with 5 different children all over. We realize that a more settled man, all right, is someone that we're going to spend millions of dollars on
Better basketball player.
in our franchise, right?
Mm.
So we're going to make you the cornerstone. And see, they look the same thing with CEOs, churches. I'm not saying it's fair and it's not always accurate, but they look and see how can you provide for a family at work if you don't have practice at home. So
Wow.
that's the piece. And then primary care physicians for men at 35 start asking, are you going to get married? And men are shocked, right? Because the primary care physician is saying, let me fast forward. At 45, 50, certainly by 55, you're going to have some type of medical procedure. You're going to have a gallbladder removed. You're going to have a cancer scare. The colonoscopy is not going to come back right. Car
Something.
accident. And you're not going to have a woman with you to do any aftercare. As you get older, 55, 60, 65, you're gonna have to care for yourself. And we know that men who have wives at home just simply fare better health wise than someone
Sure.
who is single,
Wow.
right? And
Wow.
so men really get serious about it the older that they get. And so I'm not saying we know Paul was never married and he founded all the churches. But I'm not trying to be Paul. And maybe that's why he complained about that thorn. And maybe that was the thorn. Maybe that was
And
it. He was
and the truth of the matter is he was a member of the Sanhedrin Council, so we don't know whether or not he was actually not married or if he had been married before.
mm,
Because
Wow.
to be a member of Sanhedrin, you had to have been married. And we know that he was Sanhedrin. So either she died or he left her for the gospel, which is why he taught singles what he taught them concerning. If it pleases your spouse to stay with you, then you keep your spouse. But the point
got
is
some new
that
stuff on Instagram, Dr. Alvarado. I'll
you
quote you on
my point is in saying all that, the theological implications of that, I mean, the scripture is replete with, and we always, as a married couple, as pastors, walk the tightrope. Babe, you dive in there of
Yes.
not making our singles feel like
Yeah.
they're
That they have to be married.
exactly.
But I think there's something about the whole community piece. I think as we get older in general, even women who are getting older, as we age, we think about being alone. We think about, do we have others in our life that can be there for us, be companions with us and for us, could be there with us when we get sick or whatever. I think it's a part of growing old. We all think about that. At the end of the day, who's gonna be there?
right? And
Who-
men,
Yeah.
it's just easier to have a wife to do life with. As you get older and your retirement is set and you begin to think about life after work, what is there? You lose your work family, you lose your sense of purpose. Like that's where a lot of NFL and NBA players struggle because they've lost their purpose. They played 2 to 5 years and they've lost their purpose. They've lost the camaraderie of the locker room, right?
Mhm.
They've
Right.
lost a lot of money. It's hard. It's hard to make $2 million, right? You start out at 22 making $2 million and come out and make that in the community. And so what we try to do is encourage single men to work through whatever their issues or reservations or past traumas, which is a lot of the case. Our men have been traumatized.
Yeah.
I did
I'd
a
like to hear some more
did an
about
interview a while back talking about aces, adverse childhood experiences,
that.
right?
Adverse childhood
Adverse
experience.
childhood
Okay.
experiences.
Okay.
And what they found is like it's like a list of 10 that they consider aces. And what we found was that a lot of black men had 4 or more,
Mhm.
right?
Wow.
And so
What
we're
are
like,
some of those? Can you talk about what some of those are?
all right, let me see if I can pull them up. You know
Okay.
what? I knew you were gonna ask that question. All right,
While you're
so
pulling it up, I think it's such an important thing because I was teaching out at I was lecturing out at Wesleyan Pacific University in March, and part about the spirit and social justice. And one of the things I tried to introduce to them was the idea of epigenetic transfer. That
Uh-huh.
mm,
Uh-huh.
that trauma in one generation is scientifically proven to have these kind of monoclonal connections to transfer RNA, which literally biologically and in our genetics transfers from one generation to the next. So sensibilities for pain and trauma are transferred genetically. They can be broken through environments. Loving environments, we find out that the kind of uh, reversing of that
Mhm. Mhm.
actual genetic superimposition on transfer RNA takes place when the environment changes to a more nurturing and loving environment, the environment that you're describing, even in a satisfying marital relationship. But the truth is that when I hear you talking about ACEs, I'm hearing in the back of that this epigenetic transfer, because the issues that are not managed in this generation can be passed on genetically and
Next
sociologically,
generation. Mhm.
psychologically to the next generations, and if they're compounded in each generation forthcoming.
And then also, can I just say this, as Dr. Tartt is looking up some of those ACEs, um, because we don't talk about what happened in the previous generation and generations before.
Sure.
Sometimes our men or we and women, we're dealing with situations mental health wise that may have been passed down through our family line, but nobody talked about it.
The culture of secrecy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the culture of secrecy, or or that's just the way we are. That's just the way we are. That's the
Right.
whatever our family name is. That's just how we are. That's how my mama was. That's how my granddaddy was, or whatever. And so we don't talk about those adverse childhood experiences that might have been passed down from generation to generation, and then we're wondering what's going on here. And it could be something from 2 or 3 generations ago that was never uncovered, discovered, or talked about in our community or in our.
You all are right on the money. I mean, because for men, we don't disclose. So
Mm.
one of the keys to good mental health is disclosure. So to close something up is to keep it inside. Now, when we think medically, we get it. I don't want to keep the cancer inside. So all right, let's go surgery. I don't want to keep the gallbladder inside. I don't want to keep kidney stones and stuff. So let me have surgery, right? Let me get it out. Let me disclose it. But when we have these traumas, a lot of men have been taught, don't disclose it. It's a sign of weakness. It's not going to do anything. But what we know is not disclosing actually makes it worse,
Wow.
right? And so we're talking about, it's like metastasizing for cancer. And so you're
Mm.
getting more anxious, more depressed, angrier, more irritable. Matter of fact, having 4 or more ACEs leads to 8 out of 10 leading causes of death in the United States.
Four
Right?
or
So when I
more
read this list,
ACEs,
8
Mm.
out
adverse
of 10.
childhood experiences.
Yes.
And most Black men have at least four.
So I'm gonna read them off.
Oh
All
my
right. So
goodness.
when you start looking at them,
Mm.
it's there. All right. So one, childhood physical abuse. Two, child sexual abuse. Three, child emotional abuse. Like Dr. Tony, you were talking about this. Like, hey, that's just how mama talks. That's how daddy talks. No, it was emotional. You were
Yeah,
manipulated,
yeah,
right? You
It was
you
abusive.
were emotionally abused. That's
yeah.
not setting limits. That's not tough talk. That was emotional abuse, right?
Mhm.
Number four, emotional neglect. And we have to break that one down. That means that, yeah, your mom and dad provided the basics for you. They didn't sit down and ask you about your dreams. You were there, but you were the oldest child raising 5 young ones. Right?
Right,
Mm.
Your
right.
needs were emotionally neglected. Number
Mm.
five, physical neglect. This is where it really gets interesting. Six, having a mentally ill, depressed, or suicidal person living in the home.
Wow.
Number seven, having a drug addicted or alcoholic family member.
Wow.
Number eight, witnessing domestic violence against the mother. Number nine, loss of a parent due to death or abandonment due to divorce. And then number 10, incarceration of any family member for a crime.
Wow. So
Now
when
you
you go
start
down that list,
in your neighborhood, you be
And
like, yo, that's half the block.
it only takes four.
It only takes four.
but listen to that list
I
though.
got
When
7
you
of them. I was picking it off 7 of them in my family.
just what I'm saying. When you listen to that list, you're like, who doesn't fit in that category? In those
Mm.
So
categories.
we grow up, and so how many women tell you that they are trying to fix their husbands? Baby, you
Yeah,
need to go talk about that.
for sure.
Right? And we mask it with alcohol. We mask it with extramarital affairs. We
Mhm.
mask it with sex addiction. Unfortunately, now we're masking with vaping, which we know is absolutely wrecking lives. It's the same effect as cigarettes. It's just
Oh my
marketed
God.
better,
It's
right?
terrible.
And so anger issues, right? So all these things that masculine displays of dysfunction, right? When you peel back the layer, why do you drink so much? I'm anxious. Why are you anxious? I don't trust people. Why don't you trust people? Ace. Right? Why, why don't you get in a relationship? You say you're lonely, can't trust women. Why? Emotional abandonment. right?
Wow.
So what I'm saying is that when we start peeling back the layers from men, and that's what we see. If you're getting a man coming into therapy for the first time at 30 and 40, you're getting aces. You're getting what's going on right now. And as you unpeel the layer, you realize this brother should have been here at 8 and 9.
Wow.
We're not even talking about foster care. We're not talking about going through juvenile, we're not talking about special education. Having ACEs makes you 30 times more likely to have a learning disability, right? Because you spend so much time suspended, so much time in detention, so much time being disciplined. So when we start talking about men, I like something. You're not flawed. You're not crazy. You've had an amazingly crazy life, and you should have been here a long time ago.
Wow.
There is no toughness past getting through a mom who abandoned you. There is no toughness to you having to look out for your
Forever.
siblings and you didn't have a life. You ran
Mm.
track, but you had to stop doing that because mom was addicted to drugs and you had to take care of your younger siblings.
Right.
At 17 or 18, you gave up college so you could stay
Mm.
home because you knew it wasn't a safe environment because mom had mental illness and men were coming in and out the house, or Uncle Larry abused everyone and you had to be there to keep it from happening. These are the stories that our black men are telling.
For sure. For sure.
So it's
So
just a blessing to have a man to be able to unpack this so that they can be well.
Is there any virtue then in telling them that their survival, that they shouldn't even be here based upon all the aces that they've been through?
I think so, Dr. Alba. I think it's like very counseling is very much marketing for men,
Mm.
right? I don't
Hmm.
even tell people I'm a psychologist. I tell them I'm a coach, life coach. Men are used to having coach, a fitness coach, a
mhm,
wellness coach, a
mhm.
Wow.
football, baseball coach, a life
Wow.
coach, financial coach, a wealth coach, right? And so if I'm just a life coach or a wellness coach or whatever you call it, it's around all in the marketing, then men can come in. And I say, you're incredibly resilient. And I tell them, I said, look what you've done with all this kryptonite around you. Imagine what you could do if you didn't have trust issues.
Mm.
Wow.
Imagine what you could do if you could forgive and you could provide grace because you've been able to process and go back and tell mom and dad, you didn't really raise me in a way that was actually productive or helpful, right? I just need you to acknowledge it. I'm not blaming you, but I at least need you to acknowledge that the way
Yeah.
you wasn't in my best development and it changed my trajectory. I might have been able to play football had you been able to use the fees for my track and football and basketball versus drugs, versus having to get people out of jail, versus me having to stay home for the 4 kids, your 4 kids that I have to raise,
Mhm,
right? And so
mhm.
when black men hear that, not only can you be survivors, but if we remove this kryptonite, you always talk to him as Superman, as Black Panther. If we can give you some white potion, if we can get rid of that kryptonite, if we can get rid of whatever it is to stop, a Spider-Man, all right, what could you do? Men are
So
addicted to
so so that goes to my next question, because what can we do? So we're seeing more men come into therapy, more of our Black brothers go into therapy, and our community is opening up to the idea of therapy. We're seeing more pastors talk about being in
Sure.
therapy. We're
Sure.
seeing pastors encouraging congregations to be in therapy. And we tell our congregants, I mean, when you come to us, we're not therapists, we are pastors. So we're gonna give you pastoral care and counseling. But if it's beyond that, then we have others that we recommend them to. And we're gonna recommend some of our brothers to you. We got
Huh? After I
therapists.
get through,
What you say?
after I get through, they can get in line.
I mean, it's just so we're seeing more and more of our people opening up to the mental health conversation, to therapy, going to therapy, saying I need therapy or whatever. What are some of the strategies that we can employ? What are some of the strategies you employ with your clients when they're coming in with these aces and different life issues that are uh, manifesting itself in mental health crises and
Yeah,
uh,
one. I don't give men the opportunity to cover or mask. So, how are you today? I'm good. All right. In the church, what do we say? How you doing today?
Right.
Blessed and
yes.
highly favored.
Mhm,
Too blessed to be stressed.
mhm,
All right. I don't ask that question because we're kind of programmed to say we're good. It's almost like a greeting. All right. And so I say on a scale of 1 to 10, it's called motivational interviewing. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you?
mm,
Men Open up immediately. 3, 2, 1, 4, 5. Right. And you say, okay, what makes you start with a positive? What makes you a 5? What's working? All right, because you didn't say a 1. All right, well, I am employed. All right, I do have a good relationship with my oldest daughter, and I'm in good physical shape. Right, and I have a house, a roof over my head. Okay, all right. What would make you happier? So it's a
Mhm.
positive psychology perspective. We're coaching, but
Wow.
if I could get married, if I could have a better relationship with my youngest son, I have a great relationship with my daughter, but my son actually, we can't get on the same page. I don't know whether to discipline or be his friend, and I want to be his friend, and he's disciplined, but then he's pulling away. I don't know what to do. Right at work, I feel like I have to compete. I'm getting passed over for these promotions. There's a little bit of anxiety about me going and doing it on my own. I tell everyone what I'm gonna do, but when it comes down to doing it, I'm finding myself having anxiety and taking the next step, and I don't like myself for it. And
Wow.
Mm,
I'm having a terrible time sleeping, and I've been having stomach issues, but I don't want to go see the doctor because I'm afraid they're gonna tell me something I don't want to hear because my daddy died when he was 42. So I'd rather just be in denial about what's going on.
wow.
It doesn't take 15 minutes for men to open up when they first of all they trust you, and then you come at them in a motivational interviewing style because you're saying how can we get to the 10 versus what's wrong with you,
Mm,
why are you inadequate. That's what they think's going to happen. Well, you look at it and say, how do we get you to a 10, my brother? Every man wants to be to a 10.
sure.
Wow.
Sure.
Then they start to open up. And then as you listen, because men watch, as you listen and you don't judge, because men kind of leave like breadcrumbs. They let you follow the
Mhm.
trail.
Listen
So
and don't judge.
yeah, they
Mhm.
don't. There's some men who are hyperverbal who come in and just straight lay it on the table, but there are other men. The typical man is going to give it to you in sound bites. So, all right, what will make you an 8 or a 9 if I could have a better life? What do you mean by a better life? Well, if I could work through some trust issues, like what? Like with women? Like, have you had trust issues with women in the past? All the time. Like, when was the last time? It's very much just like that.
I
Sound
hear you.
Right. Yeah,
mhm.
it is. They're watching you. They're watching to see if you're listening. Sometimes they even watch you catch their body language. They'll say, "How are you?" And they'll say, I'm fine." And I say, "You don't look fine." I'm not, man. I'm not. I'm not good, man. I'm not
Wow.
good, man. It's awful, man. It's awful. I
Wow.
don't believe in divorce, but this woman drives me nuts, and I'm losing myself. I'm looking at other women. I'm unhappy. I'm staying in the gym all the time. Man, it's awful, right? And so, if you could just be perceptive enough to watch a man's body language and just call him out on it
Yeah.
gently,
Mhm.
and then I even ask men. I say, if I see something, do you want me to beat around the bush around like you see it, kind of note it, or do
Uh-huh.
you want me to tell you straight, or do you just want it straight, no chaser?
Uh-huh.
And men will tell you their preference. They'll say a lot of men will say straight, no chaser, or men will say no, do it respectfully. And a lot of times I say, you know what? I noticed that you don't necessarily tell the truth when it comes to
Mm,
how well you're doing.
Mhm.
What you mean? You say you're doing fine, but in the last 5 minutes you talked about how you don't sleep, right? You talk to me about wanting to lose weight, and I can look at you and tell your body mass is not there. So I already know what your primary care physician is saying.
Yeah.
But you say you're fine, but yet you're here. All right. What's going on? Do you want me to ask questions in a different way? Do you want me to go about this a different way? Or do you want to start with a different topic? Nah, nah. I promised my mom I would come and open up. All right, here's the deal. All right, when I was 7, that's how quickly it did. When it was 7, man
Yeah.
came in the bathroom, he touched me, and I ain't trusted people since. All right,
wow.
I eat to soothe. Right, so I don't necessarily want to give up food because it's the only thing that makes me feel good.
Mm, mm,
Wow.
mm.
Men
Wow.
do not take once they trust you, and this is male or female, because there's some men that
Mhm.
feel self-conscious about opening up to another man because they feel like they're gonna be judged.
Right,
Right?
right.
There are a
Mm.
lot of men that will prefer a female therapist because they're used to talking to a mother,
Okay.
right? And
Okay.
so once they feel safe and they feel like they're not judged and they feel like they can heal and be better, men will open up really quickly if you are positioning them as being stronger, better, faster, wiser, richer, kinder. Men will open up as long
When
as they don't feel
they
shy.
that they can be a better man.
Say a little bit more about that because about this notion of men opening up to women because one of the things that I have advocated for is men, although Harmonize Your Life is a self care network for women, and there are a few of us that are men that are both avid participants and viewers and listeners of the podcast and supporters. And I'm going to encourage others of you that are listening to support the Harmonize Your Life podcast. There are multiple levels on Patreon that you can support the work that Dr. Tony does in our community, making our community better, lifting up the community, making us a healthier, more whole community. But I've advocated for it for men on the one hand, because I always feel like some of the conversations, much of what is being discussed, is so beneficial across the board. Though it is primarily geared toward women, just having the insight and the understanding from their perspective animates, vivifies, elevates our lives at another level. But on the other side, I'm always concerned about men within our congregation, men around in a circle that only can relate to women. So I feel really have this
Mm.
sense of tension there because I agree that I don't know if I agree or disagree. I hear, and it doesn't. I don't have any checks or red flags that men can receive the kind of insight, the kind of coaching that you're describing from women. But what say you to the notion of the man that because of his aces, because of his trauma, because of the lack of male presence in his life, can only relate to a woman, can only hear guidance from a woman, can only be
Yeah.
instructed by a woman?
What you're talking about is safety, and you know it. They're going to where it's safe. And so what we do is we take for granted the fact that we had men that pour into our lives who treated us justly, who didn't take advantage of us, who didn't judge us. I can talk to my father about anything. I can talk to my uncles about anything, right? I was
Mhm.
well cared for by a
Mhm,
community of men. But if you sit down and you talk to men and say, "Can you trust men?" Nah, you don't. Men are a threat. All right. You don't
Mm.
show weakness to other men. You show weakness to other men, then they can jump you. They can attack you. They can use it against you. They can use it to take your woman. They can get, and so they weren't raised around that. They were
on
they
the
were they
body
were
side.
raised for
Mhm,
survival of the
mhm,
fittest. All right. And so
mhm,
once you show a man that he can be vulnerable and you don't tease, you don't joan it, you don't judge it, you don't call him
mhm,
the lesser vessel, right? Man up, right? When men see that, then they
mm.
gravitate towards it. Right? I saw an interview on YouTube with a phenomenal therapist. He was interviewing the rapper Chief Keef,
Mhm.
right? And you're talking about someone talking in nuggets. That's a great case study. He's a rapper,
Wow.
traumatized, right? And three-word answers, and he had to draw it out. And so I saw him filling out the therapist, right? So as he was saying, he wanted to see what the therapist was going to do as he opened up and talked about potential weaknesses. And when the therapist didn't judge him and asked where that came from, and actually encouraged and supported him in being traumatized and being victimized, and having to be a man and figure it out and make mistakes and be incarcerated, you know, he was able to open up more. So what I've noticed in being parts of men's ministries and huddles, and we market them for specifically for men, what men do, and I know you've seen this, Dr. Alvarado. Men, there are men that open up, and then there are men that watch. They
Yeah.
watch and they say, "Oh, he opened up about what's going on in his marriage. He opened up about not being a good husband in his marriage. Let me see how the other guys respond." And when the other guys respond positively and say, "Bruh, join the club. We all mess up. Pick a week and pick a topic." Hey, yeah, right. I'm a psychologist and I can tell you what I said yesterday was awful. It was terrible. Right? It was terrible.
Wow.
I'm glad YouTube didn't follow me. Right? And so when they see, wow, men can do this. Men come around and they don't really judge each other. And then after the room, this is not on social media.
Yeah.
We're still going out to
So we
eat.
have to create what I hear you saying, Dr. Tart, is we have to create a safe environment. We have to create safe spaces for
Mm.
our men to
They
open.
have
Mm.
to see it. They have to see a man. See, we take for granted that they've seen it. You talked of us being unicorns. All right. When I work with black boys, boys are looking at me like, okay, if I tell you I failed all my classes, you gonna lecture me?
Oh,
What are you gonna say I'm weak? You gonna tell me to man up? What are you gonna do? They don't know. And I'm saying, all right, what's going on in the classes? Is it interesting? What do you want to be in life? Do you even want to do school? Do you
Mhm.
need it? You're like, oh man,
Mhm.
this brother's listening to me.
Yeah.
He's connecting. I'm trying to get him. Right? I'm trying to get him. I'm not trying to treat him yet. I'm trying to get because you can't treat someone you don't feel connected with.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
it's like relationship with God. You can give all the passages in the world, but if there's no relationship, man, it's not. It's just words.
Wow.
So when men see other men, first of all, be vulnerable and open up, that's a manhood quality. You strong enough to unmask in front of all these men, and the men handle it in a way where you get support. Then you start men raising their hands. Like there's ministries called Celebrate Recovery, right? Where men
Right.
start talking about struggling with sex addiction,
Mhm.
alcohol,
Mhm.
temper, whatever it is, whatever you're recovering from. And when they see another man being handled gently, and other men saying, "Yo, man, I've been through that. Hey, brother, if you need someone to call, because I get it." And some our wives sound like sisters. When she yelling and screaming at you, bro, call me. We can go get something to eat. We can go to the gym. Don't do that, right? I got you. I understand. Wow, thank you,
Wow.
brother. So
Mm,
Wow.
these healing circles that are
Healing
becoming
circles. I love that. Healing
healing
great.
circles
circles.
It's a
and
great
and
term.
and therapy mark and it's not even I don't even market therapy to me. It's counseling. If
Counseling.
they're a believer, I can say, hey, you know what? In the word, it says plans fail for lack of counsel.
Right.
But
Right.
with many advisors, they succeed. How can you succeed if you have no advisors?
Right.
The
Right.
president of Morehouse has advisors. The president
Right.
of the United States has advisors. A
Right.
pastor has a board of trustees. We won't get into that. All right. All right. So all these people, the CEO of a company has a board. You're trying to do life with no advisors.
With no board. And I call it the self-care board of directors in my book. I talk about having a self-care board of directors, and on
Right.
that board, you are the chair of that board because it starts with you, but you need help. And so I talk about your family members and healthy friends, and our doctors, medical doctors, our therapists and
Absolutely.
counselors, our nutritionists and dietitians, and people that help us. I don't know what's going on with my light here. Just went.
I know it just went down.
It's this ring light. Ring
Still
away.
look
I
good
think
though. It
keep
just
on
changed
going.
the
We
hue.
good.
You good.
It
You
just
good.
changes. It's just showing more of my melanin. That's all. And so, but yeah. So we talk. I talk about that in my book, Dr. Tart, about having a self-care board of directors, people like you said, advisors helping us to live this life, because we can't live it alone. We need others in our community like you to come alongside us and help us
Amen.
to live this healthy and abundant life that Jesus said that he came for us to live.
Even Jesus had 12
Absolutely.
disciples
Yeah.
to do life with.
Yeah.
And he asked questions of them. Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? He
Hmm.
got perspective and insight from them. I think it's so
Good word.
important, and particularly for men, I think it's really good to know that there are men with whom and from whom we can grow and gain insight, that we can become more into the imago Dei, that perhaps, and I'd really, I know we're running out of time, but I'd love for you to give us a thumbnail sketch, because as a pastor, I'm a surrogate everything. I'm a
Okay.
surrogate
Great.
father. I'm a surrogate brother. I'm a surrogate son. I'm a surrogate. I mean, and oftentimes, men and women lack certain things in their lives, and pastors become surrogates for that. And that's part of my, part of my gift mix, and part of my the detriment of my own life is a messianic complex that makes me feel like I can help people or can fix people. I think that makes me a good pastor, but it makes me also a really bad subject myself. But the fact of the matter is that, what say you to this notion of black men in surrogacy? Because the burden for us, 71%, 74%, some statistics will say, all of our households are headed by single women. So I'm a surrogate father.
Yeah.
I'm a surrogate big brother, and the incarceration rates are so high. And the some of our brothers are there. I mean, I'm a marriage coach, and the older that I get, and the longer that we're married, we'll be married on the 26th of next month. It'll be 29 years. The longer we stay
Congratulations.
married, thank you so much. The longer we stay married, the more the brothers are looking to us for this. We're drawing strength from this. So this idea of surrogacy, some of the brothers that are trying to do it, quote unquote, right, and I don't, you pick that apart if you'd like, but the idea of surrogacy puts a particular burden on men like you. men like me because you have a particular time period to be a therapist, a coach, a counselor to a person, to a man. I imagine that many of the men that you coach want to have an ongoing relationship lasting well beyond the period of therapy because they got something out of you they've never gotten from another man by way of surrogacy.
Yeah. We call it transference and countertransference in
Hmm.
therapy. So what you're putting on me and what I'm putting on you. So there are times I might be talking to a 16-year-old daughter, a girl, y'all, you see what I did,
You
client,
did.
and
I
I'm
heard that.
talking to you like you're my daughter, right? It's not even therapy. Like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to be with him. Oh, I forgot to ask a question about why you like him. Right? It happens. You're human, right? But
Right.
Transference and countertransference.
right? So the transference is what you put out in the what they put onto you. I had a teenage I had a teenage client, female. She didn't want to tell me she was sexually active because she did not want to disappoint me. Right. So I'm a therapist. You can't disappoint me, but I
Wow.
don't want Dr. Tartt because she's seeing a father figure, an uncle. You see what I'm saying? An older
Mm.
brother, whatever she's seeing. I don't want to tell you that I had sex last night. Right. And so that's always at play. Right.
Mm.
That's all. And I have to manage it as well. Right.
Mhm,
So my
mhm,
face doesn't change when
mhm.
they say it.
And they do
Right.
that to us as pastors too. They
Absolutely.
put that on us,
I'm
I don't
sure.
want
I'm
to let
sure
you
it's even
down. I
greater for
can't say
you all because they
certain
don't want
things.
to talk about sin.
Exactly. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But what I do though, but what I do is I am very clear. I'm not your friend. I am friendly. All right. But I'm not your friend. We have to set strong boundaries. If you call me on Saturday to hang out, I'm not gonna pick up. I'm just gonna be honest. That's not what I do. If you're in a state of emergency, I'll pick up in the middle of church. I'll walk out and say, "What's going on? You all right?" But what I say is that we're gonna have a great relationship. All right. When you see me, the time is there. I do think of you outside the session. I think about where to go, especially now with Instagram and Facebook. You see stuff,
Yeah, you see all.
right?
Yeah.
You see stuff that you normally wouldn't see. But I say, what you're really looking, I'm not a unicorn. What you're yearning for are relationships with other men who don't judge you, and they're all around you. Now, you do have to screen. There's some men absolutely you can't trust, but there are others that you bypassed because of your ACEs. You didn't even screen them. You didn't even send them through the metal detector. You didn't even give them a little bit of information to see how they handle it. But there are
Wow.
men all around you who want to be mentors. Older men are upset. When I was in the NBA, I would talk to the veterans and I'd say, "Hey, I'm working with the rookies. What advice do you have?" And they say, "Tell them to come talk to us." We sit up there and look at the rookies' games and we can help them. We know these coaches, we know the assistant coach, we know the system. We can prepare them and tell them how to do it. But what they do is they're in a room and they don't approach us. And we find it offensive that here I am, Big Bob Lanier, may he rest in peace. He passed about a month
True.
ago. I'm
True.
Big Bob Lanier. I'm in the room. I'm in the NBA as a mentor. I don't get one phone call. Right? I'm the Kimbe Mutombo. I don't get one phone call. Right? And so I went to my guys. I was like, look, if you leave rookie transition camp and you don't have a vet's number, right, we got a problem. Right? Because how you gonna start? You in LA, you're not getting playing time under LeBron. You better figure it out. You better figure out how to be meaningful. You better figure out what your role is. And so they did that, and it's been helpful. And I'm just gonna brag. Three of the guys that I work with, I'm just saying that got the mentorship are in the NBA Finals. Otto Porter, Golden State, and Jalen Brown and Marcus Smart for the Celtics. They
What you
immediately reached out, and they were able to see. All right, this is
Wow.
how you do life. This is how I figure it out. This is the work ethic that you need to have. And Jason Tatum is on record of saying he went straight to Kobe. How do you be great? Right?
Dr. Tony, that by itself is a worthy podcast.
Yeah.
That whole idea of mentoring from generation to generation and from level of accomplishment and survival to those that are just getting started on the journey. I mean,
You,
there's so much
That's
implication.
that modeling
you,
that
you,
Dr. Ellison was talking about too, Bishop.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
What's funny when I first got into, because I've been in psychology 22 years, in ministry for 6, right? And so I bring psychology into the marriage ministry, and I preached for the first time. And I said, they didn't get up and clap. There wasn't that moment at the end where I thought it was going, I did my coffin, I did my handkerchief, nothing happened. Right? Nothing happened. It was crickets. Got closed. There was no crescendo. And I asked I said, what did I do wrong, man? All right, they were like, sometimes the sermon could be good, that they're
Yeah.
silent. Right now, that
Yeah.
ain't what happened. I'm just letting you know that ain't what happened with you. There's some things you need to work on. All right, but there's an art to preaching. You didn't set up conflict. You didn't save them. You didn't introduce
Yeah.
pain. And so what I'm saying is that, when we open up and we get into a habit of asking other people, you can get there faster. Right? You
Yeah.
can get there faster. Now, men are doing that with wealth. Men are crypto coaches, wealth
Right.
coaches, stock
Right.
coaches. Men are doing that now. Health coaches, right? And so now we have to get men to have life coaches to be able. I can help you to have a better marriage. At
Yeah.
least I can help you to approach it as a man.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
help you to manage your time with multiple children. We can sit down and we can talk about how to partner with your wife when she's more talented than you. You know what I'm saying? You're trying
Sure.
to do too much, but
Yeah.
you sit up there with a real estate wife. Well, why are you looking at the numbers? Right? You just need to be repairing the house, man. You just need to get the crew, man. You don't need to look at the numbers. So helping them out, man. So men are looking for help. Men are this just needs to be marketed as that. Men are looking for coaching, mentoring, and guidance. And when we do
Coaching,
that, when we
mentoring.
guide, men follow.
Wow.
Incredible.
Coaching, and you're doing such an excellent job with that, Dr. Tartt, through your ministry, through your practice, through your speaking, through your books, your conferences. I want to just share with them some ways that they can follow you,
Absolutely.
Dr. Tartt. They can find you on Facebook at Alduan Tartt. And I'm saying and reading it as well as showing it for those who are listening to our podcast on Google or Apple or Spotify or Anchor, or for those who are watching us on YouTube. So please go there to Facebook and follow him on Twitter. You can follow him at Dr. Tartt. You can follow him on Instagram at Dr. Tartt, and his YouTube channel, which is blowing up, at Dr. Alduan Tartt. I also want to mention your marriage retreat that you have coming up. I want to know a little bit about that. If you'll share a little bit about how people can find you or be a part of your marriage retreat. Find him at aweekendforlove.com, www a weekend.aweekendforlove.com, or the marriage class, better husband and better wife.com. So talk to us about the different ways that we can connect with you
Yeah.
and your conference and all those wonderful things.
Because y'all mentioned it, I want to be front and center. I want the world to see a faith-based psychologist. So we start talking about a black man who's a psychologist and faith-based. You don't see that. Now I know a lot
Right.
of them, just like all right. But so I want to be out front and center and intentionally give boys. This is a career opportunity, right? I want to be front and center for that. So one, that's part of it's my calling. I'm always in high schools and saying, hey, there's a great career, right? And then two, for those of you that are looking for a better marriage, like, in your marriage is either getting stronger or it's getting weaker. Let's just be honest. It's not
Yeah.
staying neutral. It's like fitness. You're
Yeah.
not working out, you're getting weaker and slower.
Yeah.
Right? So same thing with your marriage. And so if you want a marriage that's thriving, or are you just being honest with yourself that you may not be on the brink of divorce, but you're on the brink of divorce, and you want something, you want to be part of a community, you want to build it up, you want to be proactive. And I know I'm talking to wives because you're the ones that's going to sign up, and men are just going to say, yeah, we need this. Check out A Weekend for Love. We give you we plan all your dates. So we plan dates for you over 3 days, September 30th to October 2nd. And we also bring in the best marriage experts to pour into your marriages. Not only marriage experts, but also couples who've been through. So couples who've worked together. How do you work together with your spouse when you're
Mhm.
arguing? How do you build wealth? How do you build legacy? How do you recover from affairs? How do you keep sex and intimacy spicy for the whole marriage?
Yeah.
All right. So we answer the questions. How do you not lose yourself as a wife? That's a big one. As a husband, how do you deal with insecurities in the different seasons of life? So whatever our couples need, we provide it for them. And then we have these phenomenal experiences. So one, we have opening day parties. We know couples arguing when they coming in. Y'all have done enough to know they arguing on the way. Open night party, live band, jazz. They have a great time. And then we have a nightcap experience, which is all about sexual intimacy. Since you're married, God wants you to have phenomenal intimacy inside the marriage. So we bring in experts to teach you, new things to keep it spicy. And then on Sunday morning, we have a vow renewal where you can renew your vows, right? In a wedding environment, right? We go over the top with it. All right. You'll see that with the price tag. We go over the top. And then we have a wedding reception for you. That's like a jazz brunch. That's over the top with all the food you can possibly eat. So we just want to make sure that we pour into couples on the highest level because they need it. And our marriage needs it, right? My wife has a requirement. I'm only allowed to teach once, twice, tops. The rest of the time, I'm sitting next to her learning from other people because you're never a master at marriage. You're always figuring out different things. So join us for weekendforlove.com. And if you're looking for a marriage enrichment class, it's just every month. It's betterhusbandbetterwife.com.
Good. And real quick, for those that may be listening that may not have finances and resources to hire a therapist or a life coach, what type of are there any community organizations? Can you point people to any resources that they can go to find a therapist if they're looking for a therapist or at least an affordable therapist? Or some people just don't even know where to start.
Well, one Psychology Today. So psychologisttoday.com, you can put in a therapist finder and put in your insurance. Most people don't realize that they have mental health coverage. Like if in Georgia, if you have Medicaid, you can find a quality therapist.
Okay.
Wow.
Right. All right. Because mental health is totally covered. Like people are jealous of Medicaid because they pay everything. The rest of us have deductibles and co-pays and so on and so forth. So look at that. And then there's an organization called stevefund.org. So the Steve Fund, stevefund.org. If you're looking for resources for youth of color, they'll cover the cost. They'll help you find it. So
say that again. I'm going to put it on the screen.
Steve Fund. So STEVE fund.org.
Okay.
stevefund.org. There's also an app called Alchemy. So what they're realizing in the research is that there's a need for resources before, in between, and after therapy, right? So, and that's the Alchemy app. All right, it's Alchemy. It started by a brother who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, went to Michigan, Ryan Mundy. And the Alchemy app is what they can check out. So they have meditations, they have live labs, they have community forums, they have healing circles for people to get resources in between counseling sessions and after or even before, because that need is huge. And it's for people of color, by people of color.
Wow, this is awesome. You are such a wonderful resource to our community. And I'm just thankful that you're in our community. I'm thankful that God is using you like he is. I look forward to hearing more from you. Hopefully we can bring you to our church to do some work with our couples, with our men, or just in general around mental health. I'm looking forward to doing more work with you in the community. Thank you again for being our guest today on the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast. Thank you for helping us move the needle, have this conversation, educate, and enlighten and inspire and motivate our community to be healthy, spirit, soul, and body. It is so important. And our mental health matters. Black lives matter, but mental health matters even to Black lives. And so we're thankful for you and the work that you do in our community. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This has been amazing. And yes, the answer is yes. Y'all, until y'all call me, I'll be there.
All right, then we're going to do that.
We're going to do it for sure.
All right, we'll see you all again next week for another intriguing podcast conversation with your host, Dr. Tony G. Alvarado. See you soon. Hi, this is Dr. Tony Alvarado, and I want to personally invite you to join the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Network. Join us for fitness motivation, health and wellness information, inspiration, self-care strategies, and ideas for creating harmony in your life. As a certified health and wellness coach, it is one of my greatest honors to support women in their fitness, health, wellness, and self-care goals. Join the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Network, and we will do you good on your journey.